Unstable weather in the city as a man is killed in traffic accident. Pilot scheme to offer after-school care service to students. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on the way to China. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Heavy rain fell on the city over the course of the afternoon, with the red rainstorm warning signal being in effect for over 2 hours. A man died after crashing his van in Tseung Kwan O. Timothy Lee reports.
This afternoon, Hong Kong's skies were covered by dark clouds and much of the city was drenched by heavy rainfall. Sai Kung's Big Wave Bay, which reported over 200 milliliters of rainfall, was one of the most hard-hit areas. Nearby Sai Wan village saw damage caused by a landslide. Firefighters were later deployed to handle the situation. Large vehicles driving past puddles on the road resulted in over 1-meter-high water splashes. In Tseung Kwan O, a driver was suspected of losing control of his van and crashed into a fence railing on Choi Ling Road. He was found unconscious by passersby who broke the van's window to rescue the driver. Medical personnel brought him to hospital, but he was later pronounced dead. Elsewhere, some vehicles in New Territories West were trapped by floods. Flooding reached knee-high levels at Tongyansan village in Yuen Long, where a private car driver was trapped in this vehicle until he was rescued by fire services staff. Neighboring Shanghai village also reported flooding. Scores of miscellaneous items were washed inside the interior of villagers' homes. Some animals even sought shelter in places of residence. This local resident said the chairs in her home were floating on water and that it happens whenever it rains. The observatory first issued an amber rainstorm warning signal at 12:40 p.m. before upgrading it to a red warning signal at 2:05. Several districts recorded above 60 millimeters of rainfall, with Hong Kong Island East, Kowloon, and Sha Tin reporting over 90 millimeters. The observatory said a trough caused the poor weather and predicted that showers will continue into the early hours of tomorrow and will gradually recede by the afternoon. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The government will launch a 1-year after-school childcare services starting from September. Secretary for Administration Eric Chan hopes this pilot scheme can support single parents by allowing them to join the workforce even as they have to take care of their children. Memo Sengai reports.
As a way to support single-parent families, schools that participate in the after-school childcare services pilot scheme will arrange non-governmental organizations to look after primary school students from single-parent homes. $99 million will be allocated to the scheme from the Community Care Fund, which is expected to benefit about 3,000 students. Speaking on a radio program, Secretary for Administration Eric Chan said authorities hope the scheme can help grassroots families, allowing them to work outside without needing to look after their children. Chan added the scheme can also benefit students as they can use after-school hours to revise schoolwork or receive learning support from NGO staff members. Carrie Wong, a supervisor from the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups, said while the NGO welcomes the policy, she does not think students can receive as strong support as they would at community centers. This is due to fewer social workers that could be sent to schools. Meanwhile, the first phase of the Strive and Rise program, a scheme to help underprivileged secondary school students, will end in October. The secretary said authorities plan to launch the second phase afterwards, hoping to extend the program to students living in public housing. Memos Nai, TVB News.
18 individuals charged with participating in riots in Yau Ma Tei during the November 2019 Polytechnic University riot have been convicted. The 18 defendants are aged between 17 and 27, mostly consisting of students, nurses, and photographers. They were charged with engaging in violence on the 18th of November in 2019 on Nathan Road at Yau Ma Tei. Regarding certain defendants earlier claiming to be innocent bystanders, the court said they wore black clothing and were carrying protest-related items. The defendants remain remanded in custody and will have to wait until next month for a chance to plead for a lighter sentence. A new harbourfront venue will soon be available for the public to spend some relaxing time. Quarry Side, a new community space in Quarry Bay, was officially launched today. The area will kick off trial operations next month and gradually open to the public. Veronica Lin was at the event.
Serene and calm, this is the first impression for many guests at Quarry Side, a newly launched community space at the heart of Quarry Bay, which is a residential and commercial area. The project has transformed vacant government land into a space that offers diverse experiences to promote a creative and sustainable lifestyle.
3、2、1
Officiating guests at the opening ceremony included Secretary for Development Bernadette Lin, who hopes residents can fully benefit from this harbourfront development.
We believe that this project would help to connect the community, promote interactions among the public, and enhance a sense of belonging with the harbourfront.
In fact, this is only the tip of the iceberg in the joint effort by the government, NGOs, and the private sector to develop the harbourfront.
We are targeting to connect 34 kilometers of our harbourfront open to public by 2028. So apart from Hong Kong Island, so there are many projects in Kowloon that will be delivered probably within this year and next year.
At Quarry Side, a series of upcycling workshops will be held to promote creativity and sustainability. Guests can visit the workshop space and learn how to upcycle old t-shirts into fashionable objects through knitting and crocheting. Echoing the district's history and culture, the design of Quarry Side's pavilion was inspired by Quarry Bay's industrial past, the sugar refinery, and the Taiku dockyard.
In this community kitchen, culinary enthusiasts can come together and make a popular Chinese dessert, candied roasted peanuts. Veronica Lin, TVB News.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has left Washington for Beijing as he tries to make headway on the long list of disputes between the United States and China. With pervading tensions over Taiwan and other issues, Blinken's visit comes as Beijing repeatedly warns the U.S. to stay out of China's internal affairs. Nazvi Karim has more.
Competition or conflict? When it comes to US-China relations, they are separated by a fine line, or even miscalculations, said US Secretary of State Antony Blinken before he left for Beijing.
Are you ready?
Blinken will be the highest-ranking US government official to visit China since President Joe Biden took office, and the first Secretary of State to do so in 5 years. And it comes amid difficult relations between the two superpowers, with Blinken hoping he can help to ease tensions. The 3-day trip may involve the meeting with President Xi Jinping. Blinken earlier spoke about his China objectives.
The trip has 3 objectives. First, to establish open and empowered communications so that our two countries responsibly manage our relationship, including by discussing challenges, by addressing misperceptions, and avoiding miscalculations. Second, to advance U.S. interests and values, and those we share with allies and partners around the world. And third, to explore the potential for cooperation on transnational challenges, global economic stability, illicit synthetic drugs, climate, global health, where our countries' interests intersect.
U.S. officials said they are not expecting any major breakthroughs after a Tuesday phone call in which Foreign Minister Qin Gang told Blinken that the United States should stop interfering in China's affairs. Blinken's visit comes off a meeting in Bali last year between Xi and Biden, in which both sides agreed to keep lines of communication open. Blinken was meant to visit China in late January, but postponed his trip because Washington claimed a Chinese spy balloon was breaching U.S. airspace. On Friday, Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman Wang Wenbin, in response to Blinken's visit, said the U.S. should adhere to the 3 principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence and win-win cooperation, proposed by President Xi Jinping. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Still ahead on tonight's news. Vladimir Putin says Russia has deployed nuclear weapons in Belarus. Report finds systemic racism in a US police department. Britain's King Charles begins official birthday celebration. Welcome back to TVB News. Russian President Vladimir Putin has confirmed Moscow has already deployed its first batch of nuclear weapons in Belarus, but he gave an ambiguous assessment of Russia's willingness to use them. Tracy Furness has more.
Speaking at the St. Petersburg International Forum on Friday, Putin rejected the possibility of reducing Russia's nuclear arsenal, saying he had more nuclear weapons than NATO. They know about it, and all the time we are being persuaded to start negotiations on reductions, Putin said. The first nuclear charges were delivered to the territory of Belarus, but only the first part, Putin continued. He said by the end of the year, Russia will have completed this work. Putin added the nuclear weapons were acting as a deterrent. Meanwhile, a group of African leaders arrived in Kyiv Friday for a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The delegation, which includes South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Mabouli, put forward a 10-point proposal to end the 16-month-old conflict between Russia and Ukraine. During a joint press conference after their meeting with Zelensky, Ramaphosa said that Africa is being impacted by the war.
Africa is also feeling the negative impact of this war. Our grain prices have gone up and there's a shortage. Fertilizer prices have also shot up. So even as we are thousands of kilometers away as African countries, we are feeling the impact of this war.
Ramaphosa went on to say, in their quest for peace, they are there to listen to Zelensky and to Putin, who they will meet on Saturday. He said the process for peace is complex and requires all viewpoints to be put on the table.
The conflict in Russia and Ukraine is really in no one's interest. South Africa is a part of the non-aligned movement. Believe in friendship with everyone and peaceful coexistence. We want peaceful coexistence between Russia and Ukraine.
Zelensky appealed to the African leaders to ask Putin to free political prisoners from Crimea and other places. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers in 1971, which exposed the raw truth about the Vietnam War, died at age 92. This report from NBC News.
Tonight, tributes rolling in for Daniel Ellsberg, the largely unknown Pentagon analyst during the Vietnam War, later labeled the most dangerous man in America by Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. All after Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers to the New York Times and later the Washington Post. 7,000 secret government pages showing the U.S. government had been misleading the public about the growing scope of America's role in Vietnam and that the military doubted its chances of victory.
I stole nothing. I did not commit espionage, as indicated by the Espionage Act.
It led to a landmark Supreme Court decision on press freedom that helped inspire a generation of investigative journalists. When the Nixon administration tried to stop the newspapers from publishing, the justices sided with the press. And criminal charges against Ellsberg were later thrown out by a judge, citing in part a break-in by the White House plumbers at Ellsberg's former psychiatrist's office, seen as a warm-up to the Watergate burglary that would bring down President Nixon. We interviewed Ellsberg just 2 months ago after he announced his pancreatic cancer diagnosis.
What you want your legacy to be, because you're thinking about that clearly.
It doesn't pay for me to think about legacy very much.
And also telling us, I'm glad I did it. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
U.S. President Joe Biden confused onlookers at a speech on gun control in Connecticut. After a rambling end to his delivery, he said, "God save the Queen." Whether it was a pop culture reference or he was paying respects to the late Queen Elizabeth is unclear.
If you can see the camera, they can see you. And it's the least consequential part of this whole meeting for you, I promise. All right? God save the Queen, man.
And in Britain, King Charles celebrated his official birthday today by overseeing the trooping of the colour parade. He is the first monarch to ride on horseback. At the event in more than 3 decades, the royal family left from Buckingham Palace this morning. King Charles, Princess Anne, Prince William and Prince Edward left on horseback, while Queen Camilla, Princess Catherine and her 3 children rode to the event in carriages. The colour or regimental flag is trooped in front of hundreds of guardsmen and officers on Horse Guards Parade. Locally, the Immigration Department launched a recruitment experience day today. This morning, many people gathered at the Immigration Service Institute of Training and Development in Tuen Mun for the same reason, hoping to join the Immigration Department. They were given a tour of the trainees' accommodation and a lecture on weapons. The department hopes to recruit 340 employees, including 80 officers. Interested individuals can submit applications between today and the 28th. Generative artificial intelligence is getting more popular these days with the use of ChatGPT. Zella Chin reports.
Generative AI creates original content. Fred Ong runs an insurance company. It uses generative AI such as ChatGPT to assist in writing articles for its blog.
Let's say you are a health-related blog writer. Please use lung cancer as a topic and include cause, prevention, treatments, and 500 words.
It's all done. I think that was like less than 1 minute.
Yes, it's a lot more efficient.
So can this be published on the web right away?
No, we think it's still very important that we have it reviewed by the health professionals.
It takes about 75 minutes from the AI writing an article to a health professional reviewing it and to publishing it on the website. In the past, without generative AI, the entire process took a few days to a week.
So we're going to try using generative AI. We're using a program called ChatGPT. Now I'm going to tell it to write a biography of me, Zella Chin, in 100 words. Let's see what it says. So Zella Chin is a Chinese-American entrepreneur, inventor, and investor. She is the founder and CEO of her own company, which focuses on developing innovative products for the health and wellness industry. As you can tell, this is completely wrong. So if you're going to use generative AI, please fact check it and take it with a grain of salt.
While generative AI is not always accurate, many people think it's a game changer.
With generative AI, I feel like everyone will be using it as a very important tool, like how we use calculator.
The Dean of Engineering at Chinese University warns that we need to be careful.
These robots is going to be much more clever than you. So we have to really think about whether we want to maybe slow down or maybe have more regulations to make sure that we're not creating something that hurt mankind.
Governments around the world are working on regulations for generative AI. Zella Chen, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.